Papua New Guinea is the most intriguing corner of our planet. A world within our world. A land whose people and wildlife have evolved in total isolation, where the 21st century and ancient tribalism meet in a way seen nowhere else. This gentleman, for example, is airport security at Tari in the Highland region. The inhospitable mountainous interior is still rarely visited, thrust up by huge volcanic forces and slashed by deep river gorges. Much of this vast country is shrouded with impenetrable forest. Even in the last century, tribes were found here that had never had contact with the outside world. Deep in the forest, rare flowers and orchids thrive. Even today, no roads link the country. Most peter out not very far from the outskirts of towns. Any travel around the nation has to be by air or by boat. Papua New Guinea is a land composed of more than 850 separate and tiny independent tribal societies, each with their own distinctive cultures, traditions and even languages that bear no relationship to each other, often coming from completely different linguistic roots, to the extent that sometimes neighbouring villages can barely communicate with each other. Linguists say that around 1/3 of all the languages spoken in the world are spoken only in Papua New Guinea. Most regions have a central town, where the people from the countryside come every day to the markets. A colourful mix of fresh fruit and vegetables from their small garden plots. These markets are the centre of commerce for the district. Outside the few towns and cities, most people still live as they have always done. Basic crafts are an essential way of life. Weaving billams, the carrier bags found throughout the country. Making the basics of life, such as pots to eat from. Building boats. And raising livestock. Brides can still be purchased, and pigs are the favourite dowry in these transactions. The men spend much of their time in the men's house, and the women in the women's house. These are usually just huts with bare cane benches and a fire in the centre, where they gather to smoke and retell ancient stories. Generally, women carry out all day-to-day work. Gardening, caring for the animals, fetching water, and cooking for the household. Leaving the men to carry out the harder work. Like these huli building mud walls to protect their enclosure. And plenty of time for hunting and for warfare with neighbouring tribes. Chewing betel nut remains popular throughout the country, the raw nut being eaten with powdered lime and mustard stalks. It has a mild narcotic effect, and for regular users, the side effect of permanently stained mouth and teeth. Although the national government has imposed laws on the people, tribal law is still a powerful force. In some tribes, the most serious crime is not the taking of a life, but adultery, the taking of a wife. A killing could be resolved by compensation payments to the family of the victim, in land or in livestock. But the traditional punishment for adultery would be the cutting off of the woman's nose, so she can't be attractive to men anymore. And the man would be hung from the ceiling of a hut and smoked over a low fire in an ordeal of death by suffocation. Powerful traditions are still very alive and form part of the daily ritual of life. Every tribe has its own costumes, dances, and rituals that are founded in the mists of time, most stemming from the strong warrior tradition. These dances mimic the tail feathers of birds of paradise. The costumes are all handmade, the warriors taking pride in hunting for the feathers and skins that adorn them. Some are handed down from generation to generation. The mudmen's ghostly costumes, pale mud daub, and spectral dance was designed to make rival tribes believe that they had supernatural powers. Today the dances are performed for tourists, but the underlying traditions and beliefs remain as powerful as they have always been. From these ancient tribal roots sprang unique art forms. In the Sepik region, these are stored in a central spirit house. From every region of the country, there are carvings, designs, and paintings that reflect the very different customs and beliefs of the different tribes. The funeral feast is another old tradition remembered in art. and driving along a dirt road in the Highlands, feast. The old man who had died had left instructions that all his pigs be slaughtered for a feast in his memory. The whole village turned out to enthusiastically butcher his herd before cooking them on a huge outdoor hearth of heated rocks. One strong tradition is that of the compensation ceremony, the principle of an eye for an eye still prevailing. After wars between tribes, there would be a settlement where the loss of dead and injured warriors was compensated for by payment in pigs and land by the losing side. This is extended now even to traffic accidents. Injure a member of a family and damages may have to be paid in pigs. And the handing over of the compensation is always the occasion of a celebratory feast. The annual shows at Mount Hagen and Goroka are amazing spectacles, when warriors from all around the Highlands come together to compete in a display of their traditional costumes and dances. The debris of a modern war is scattered everywhere throughout the country. During World War II, only Papua New Guinea stood between the Japanese Imperial Army and Australia. Initially, the Japanese army steamrolled from the north to within sight of Port Moresby, before being stopped by the Australian forces. It took a further 3 years to drive them back from the mainland, a bloody and bitter campaign. Veterans from both sides still make pilgrimages to remember comrades who fell in that long, harsh struggle. In addition to the mainland, Papua New Guinea also has some 600 tropical islands, scattered across 3 seas, the Coral, Solomon and Bismarck Seas. On the inhabited islands, life appears to the visitor to be an idyllic southern seas dream, fringed by pristine coral reefs. This is just a small taste of the raw and fascinating nation that is the backdrop to some of the planet's most amazing diving. A place where the reefs are even today only subsistence fished by the occasional dugout canoe, and so remain pristine, vibrant, and still densely populated with fish. This is how all the world's oceans once were.